You're listening to Startup Universe Talks, a podcast where we meet with startup founders, angel investors, and major stakeholders of the startup ecosystem. They let us in on the do's and don'ts of running a startup, their career story, and the process of succeeding as well as failing. In other words, everything of interest to startup nerds. Startup Universe is a massive network of opportunities for tech startup founders.
Hello everyone, this is George from Startup Universe Talks. Today we have with us Florent Bernard, who is a science counselor at the European Union Delegation at the USA. Hello, Mr. Bernard, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. Before we start, can you share a little bit of your story and career so far?
Yes, hi George. Great to be with you today. Thank you for interviewing me. I've been working for the past 2 years here at the European Union Delegation to the US. I'm based in Washington, DC. I've been for the past 18 years now working for the European institution, mostly for the European Commission. I started as a scientific officer. I was recruited after I finished my PhD in molecular biology and did a first postdoc. I was recruited to manage a research project in the areas of life science. I did that for a few years, and then I moved to more policy work at European level, and I worked on innovation policies. And then soon enough, I started working on international cooperation, both in research and innovation. I held the position of international relation officer with India, then with China, and then I joined the delegation 2 years ago.
And what made you make that switch from being an officer and pursuing international relations to policy making?
So first of all, as a scientist, so you see the importance of international cooperation, because you know that science has no barriers. And when I was managing project, I could already see that research at international level was a request for excellence. And that's why I wanted to move to contributing to creating more international cooperation, both with countries we are used to work with, like the US, of course, but also with countries that are newcomers as science, high science performing countries like China, or also with India. So I think there was a need to connect the international scientific community through projects, and this is what we were doing through Horizon 2020 and now Horizon Europe.
And I think it's very interesting and fascinating being involved and worked in projects and environments from Europe, but also getting involved with things in the East and Asia, and now in the US. So for those who don't know, can you tell us what's Horizon Europe?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So Horizon Europe is the research and innovation program of the European Union, and it's open to the whole world. So currently we have about 140 different countries participating in that project. We mainly fund networks of researchers on a large number of areas linked in general to the global challenges humanity is facing, from health to climate to energy and food security. And most of our network are international, either with European partners or partners from all over the world. We are also contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals through that program. we are paying for the participation of researchers from low and middle income countries. And we, of course, encourage researchers from industrialized countries to join also. And this is really a truly international research platforms like many researchers are interested in having, because they just join, apply for research projects, and can engage in this type of cooperation. The program is 96.5 billion euro over 7 years, and we are already actually preparing the successors of this Horizon Europe program. This one will last until 2027. So we are already preparing the next edition, which will come after that.
Oh, that's very interesting. For you personally, how it is to work for the European Commission and other European institutions for over 18 years? How does it feel like? Any motivations that led you to that decision?
Well, there is a personal interest in policies. As a scientist, I like, of course, to understand how things works, but you also want to make things work better. So there was a personal motivation of improving personally how the European projects was working. It is very exciting to work for the European institutions. It requires a high level of involvement. You need to keep yourself informed of all the developments in your area of work. And you, of course, have to take into account the disparities and the difference of 27 different member states, and also the geopolitical context. So it's a very precise and complex endeavor. In research innovation is especially exciting because that's internationalization of research is really sine qua non condition for excellence. So you really want Europe to be a high performer science producer on the global stage, and making sure that European scientists work in collaboration with their peers all around the world. So it is a very exciting task, and very demanding also, and it requires to have a broad view of a lot of different topics. My personal training is in molecular biology, but over the years I trained myself in many other areas to have a working understanding of many different areas, ranging from innovation to other type of science.
And I think learning new things and understanding a variety of topics around you is one of the characteristics that a successful entrepreneur should possess. If you weren't involved with policy or international relations, where would you pursue a career in? What was like your goal while studying at the university, while pursuing your PhD?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I think the work in the European Commission in terms of research innovation is really a game changer, because we are creating links all around the world, and improving the performing of the conduct of research and science, and increasing the innovation capabilities of the EU. If I had not worked there, I would probably have looked for a similar task in the private sector. I'm thinking of large venture capital firms are also looking at creating this link between research and added value for the citizen or the consumers, and creating new services, new companies that will make life of people better, hopefully. So this innovation for good is something that has always interested me, and it is, of course, up to the private sector to make it happen. So I would say that I would have been interested in this type of activities that brings to the system, let's say, an added value to change the life of the citizen around the world.
That's great. Being based and having worked with the US during the last few years, and I presume you spend lots of time there in comparison to what you used to spend in Europe. Do you feel that you're left behind with the latest news and things happening in Europe?
Oh, not at all. First of all, we are a connected world. So in terms of access to information, it doesn't make any difference where you are, as long as you're connected. I can attend a number of conferences either in Europe or in the US or in Asia, taking into account the jet lag, of course, but this is something that is quite easy to do. I have traveled a lot in the US. I'm on the go every month in some parts of the country. But what I've noticed is that there is a great interest from the US universities, innovators, investors in what is happening in Europe. So actually, I've got to learn and pay more attention to what's going on in Europe from the perspective of the US, because I see both an interest and an attempt to link much better their research innovation ecosystem here in the US with the European one. So I think this is a great task also to facilitate these connections. We have a great deal to learn from each other. We have a great deal to work together to perform excellent science, to create new groundbreaking innovations, to invest in each other's capacities also. So I see that the transatlantic links are growing and that the distance is shrinking, basically. So this is my observation in the last 2 years. And there are amazing things that are happening in Europe, and this is acknowledged in the US research innovation community.
That seems pretty amazing, and it must be also very helpful that you can see what is happening in Europe from the point of view of a foreigner who is based in the US. And I think either way, someone will have to do this. Big in the US, representing the European Union and Europe as a whole, and at the same time finding ways how those two continents can come together. From your experience, what are some things that Europe can learn from the United States?
What Europe can learn from the United States? Well, first of all, if you don't mind, I'd like to reverse the question. Because we always think of what Europe can learn from the United States, and I'll come to that. But we should not forget that the United States is learning a lot from Europe also. We have seen that sorry, you'll have to cut that in the editing. So I start again. So what the United States can learn from Europe is that we have developed a very efficient regulatory dynamics. And what we have observed in Europe is that regulation are inducive of innovation also, because we're creating new markets through the regulation. We are allowing newcomers to come in and develop. So this is something that is unusual in the US to regulate too much, but I've seen that what the US calls the Brussels effect is taking place also in the US. For instance, the GDPR provisions that have been launched by the EU are now being mimicked by the state of California. We've seen many other examples of European regulations that are adopted afterward by the US. So I think this is an important dynamics that is taking place. We are influencing each other, of course, and the dialogue is very important. But we see that the influence is really going both ways. Now, what Europe can learn from the US? Well, we all know that the US is a very efficient system in terms of value creation. And I think that's where the EU could learn in its systemic approach to value creation. So we create a lot of value in Europe, of course. We have very high-performing companies, a very dynamic workforce, well-educated, efficient healthcare system. So it's probably looking into the system, the systemic approach, that's how we create values. This is something that works quite well in terms of creating new markets or allowing newcomers to develop in the US through big venture capital funds and innovative ideas. So there's probably something to learn there. I know that this is what we're already doing through initiatives like the new European Innovation Agenda, which aims at putting Europe in the forefront of deep tech innovation, and which includes a number of measures that will contribute to that systemic change of turning Europe in even more innovation-friendly area. One big important thing is that a lot of Europeans, when they come here, they admire the mindset, especially in the Silicon Valley or in the Boston ecosystem, the right to fail. This is something absolutely important. From what I understand, from what I've seen, European innovators have that mindset already. They have that mindset. What is lacking is that investors in Europe have also that mindset, that investors dare to take risk. This is really where innovation is impeded, because we need private investors, much more private investors, taking risk and looking into the potential of new innovation rather than looking at the short-term return on their investment. So this is something that probably needs to be changed. The innovators have already a risk-taking approach. There's a lot of startups in Europe, a lot of younger crowds are, and you're an example of that, of course, are interested in taking the risk of launching innovative ideas. We need support from that from the private sector, the European private sectors. And actually a lot of American investors also already invest in Europe because they see that potential. So we hope that the European private sectors will match that enthusiasm and risk-taking approach.
Do you believe that things will get better if and when we start seeing more unicorns coming out from Europe? So then investors will will see the big returns, will see that the money they invest in are used efficiently.
Yeah, well, there are already a number of cases that shows that we're performing well, and actually it is a matter of taking the risk to invest in those companies that are there. This is really what we're talking about here. So I don't think we need any more proofs. We just need to some private investors to take the risk, to take the step of risking their investment, looking at the longer term potential of the companies that they are investing in, rather than giving them too little money for too much equity, for example, and stifling their capacities in that way.
So that comes also through learning and changing a little bit the mentality. in order to try out new things?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really a mindset. U.S. investors
Mm-hmm.
have understood that perfectly, and they have amazing return on their investment. A lot of are risky investments, but this is part of the game. You cannot win without taking risk.
Mm-hmm. So another very vibrant question and topic that is being discussed for many years now is what are some patterns that you noticed in regards to the migration of talent from Europe to the US? Will we ever see mass amounts of people moving from US to Europe instead?
Well, that's an interesting observation to make. We still see, and I think it's good, a lot of European researchers wanting to have an experience in the US. I think this is really good. Doing a postdoc in the US is something that is of absolutely high quality for European researchers, and they should be encouraged to do that. And that's what the Marie Sklodowska-Curie actions do actually, and they are massively used by Europeans to go on a 2-year tenure postdoc grant in the US, accompanied by a 1-year return in Europe. So I think this is, we talk about brain mobility now. In terms of opportunities after that, the European Research Council is now providing a very competitive offer for top talents to come or stay in Europe. And we actually have, the results were released a few days ago of the latest grants, ERC grants, and you have high-level talents from all over the world, including from the US, that are relocating in European universities through that grant. So the European Research Council has fulfilled its role to capture and or bring back or keep top talent in Europe. Now, we should not forget that positions for scientists are not only at universities. The reason why there are still a lot of European researchers that go to the US is because there are more opportunities in the private sector also. And this is something that we should increase in Europe, also allowing all the scientists that we trained in Europe not only to find positions in universities, which per se will be limited, of course, but have more opportunities in the private sector. And I think this is where we need to work on and increase these career paths in the private sector by increasing the potential of companies or startups to recruit scientists. We are training a lot of very high quality scientists in Europe, and we have a great environment for companies to grow and thrive. So I think this should be, this is what we should focus on in the coming years.
But top talent doesn't only come from the academia and research. The US has been very attractive to entrepreneurs, people that want flexible environments, people that take bold decisions. What about that talent? What about those people that
Yes,
have
so
made the US successful today, if we could
yeah,
say?
absolutely. So of course, in addition to attracting university top talent through the European Research Council, we also make big efforts in retaining our innovators. A lot of national programs exist already at European level, but we have at European level launched now the European Innovation Council, which has been very successful in retaining startups, accompanying them to scale up, offering them loans, equities to grow and scale up. So this is something in the making. It's already happening, but of course there is room for growth, but it's already a big achievement. Again, brain mobility is something that we will always foster. It's great for a European innovator to go and get trained in the Silicon Valley or in Boston or in New York, to have access to that mindset, to understand how this mindset has been developed, what it consists of, and how they can bring it back home. But we are making very big efforts to increase this attractiveness of innovators in Europe. Of course, again, the private sector should do its share of the work and making sure that risk money is available for them to grow, because innovators are there in Europe, they are ready to take the risk. They need, of course, supports for that, and that support cannot only come from the public sector.
That's good to know. So thank you very much for all the insights you shared with us, Mr. Bernard, today. Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, just wishing you best of luck for your work. I think it's great what you're doing. We really need a very dynamic startup community in Europe. I think you are inspiring for the new generation. So I wish you the best in your work, and hopefully we will see a lot of new companies coming out of initiatives like yours. So best of luck, and thank you again for interviewing me.
Thank you very much for being with us today. For sure, we promise that, and we hope you will see the results of our work soon. For our audience watching us, we will see you on the next episode. Thank you for being with us today.